Captain Sarah Chen scanned the instruments with a keen eye, her expression betraying none of the nervous anticipation that churned within. This was uncharted territory, the first human expedition to venture into this distant star system, and she was determined to make it a success. Sensors are picking up several Class M planets within the habitable zone, her XO, Commander Jackson, reported. Atmospheric composition is breathable, and the preliminary scans indicate abundant natural resources. Excellent. Begin preparations for planetary surveys and resource extraction. I want teams planet-side as soon as it's safe to deploy. Sarah tapped her chin thoughtfully. And keep a close eye on those outer planets. Those storm patterns look quite intense. AI, Captain. I've already dispatched a reconnaissance shuttle to take a closer look. Sarah nodded in approval, then turned her gaze back to the view screen. The planets were a swirling tapestry of blues, greens, and browns, a stark contrast to the inky blackness of space that surrounded them. If all went well, this system could provide a vital boost to the human empire's expanding reach and resources. Her reverie was broken by a sudden blip on the sensor array. Captain, we've got an unknown energy signature spiking near the outer gas giant, one of the crew called out. It's powering up rapidly. Sarah's eyes narrowed. Battle stations. All hands, prepare for. Her order was cut short as a blinding beam of energy lanced out from the planet's surface, striking the Victory with earth-shattering force. The mighty warship shuddered under the impact, its shields flaring to life, even as alarms blared through the bridge. Shields at 60% and falling. Hull integrity compromised on decks 7 through 13. Jackson shouted, his fingers flying over the control console. Sarah gripped the arms of her chair, her knuckles turning white. Damage report. Multiple systems overloading. Weapons, engines, life support. We're hemorrhaging power. One of the bridge officers responded frantically. Whatever that thing is, it's tearing us apart. Sarah's mind raced. They had to get out of here, but the enemy had already gained the upper hand. If they tried to retreat, the Victory might not survive the jump to FTL. They were trapped, caught in the sights of an ancient and merciless guardian. All hands, abandon ship. She commanded, her voice ringing with an urgency that brooked no argument. Get to the escape pods now. As the crew sprang into action, Sarah cast one last, lingering glance at the view screen. The planet's surface was wreathed in an eerie, pulsing glow, the alien defense system powering up for another devastating strike. Humanity will not be denied, she murmured, then turned and hurried toward the nearest escape pod, praying that some of her crew would survive to carry on the fight. The escape pods rocketed away from the stricken Victory, their occupants watching in stunned silence as the mighty warship was engulfed in a blinding flash of energy. The vessel seemed to simply vanish, disintegrating in an instant under the alien system's relentless assault. Sarah gripped the edge of her seat, her knuckles white, as she stared at the now empty space where the Victory had been. The loss of her ship, her crew, it was a devastating blow, one that threatened to shatter her composure. But she quickly pushed those feelings aside, replacing them with a burning determination. Humanity had been dealt a humiliating defeat, but she refused to let it be their final chapter. They would learn from this, grow stronger, and one day return to this cursed system to reclaim what was rightfully theirs. Secure the pod and prepare for deceleration, she ordered, her voice betraying none of the turmoil within. We need to rendezvous with the nearest UEC outpost and get this intel back to headquarters. The other survivors snapped to attention, their own grief and shock temporarily set aside in the face of their captain's unwavering resolve. As the escape pod hurtled through the void, Sarah's gaze remained fixed on the distant stars, her mind already racing ahead to the battles to come. Humanity had been tested and found wanting, but she would ensure that the next time they faced such a challenge, they would be ready. The escape pod rocketed through the blackness of space, the stricken Victory growing smaller in the distance. Sarah gripped the arms of her seat, her knuckles white, as she watched the last embers of her beloved ship fade away. "Captain, we're receiving a priority distress signal from the other escape pods," one of the crew reported, his voice tense. "They're reporting heavy damage and casualties." Sarah grit her teeth. "Divert all available power to life support and maneuvering thrusters. We need to get to them as quickly as possible." As the pod surged forward, Sarah closed her eyes, focusing on steadying her breathing. The loss of the Victory weighed heavily on her, but she knew that dwelling on it now would only jeopardize the lives of those still counting on her. "Status report," she demanded, her eyes snapping open. "Shields at 40% and holding. Thrusters operating at 80% efficiency." The crew member paused, his expression grim. "Captain, the alien defense system appears to be tracking our escape pods. It's powering up for another attack." Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she watched the distant planet's surface begin to glow ominously. "Evasive maneuvers. Get us out of its firing arc." The pod lurched and spun as the pilot desperately tried to evade the incoming barrage. But the alien system was relentless, its targeting algorithms calculating the pod's trajectories with uncanny precision. Another blinding beam of energy lanced out, striking one of the escaping pods with devastating force. Sarah watched in horror as the fragile vessel disintegrated in a ball of flame, the shockwave buffeting their own pod. "Shields down to 15%. The crew member shouted. "We can't take another hit like that." Sarah's mind raced. They were outmatched, outgunned, and rapidly running out of options. If they couldn't break free of the alien system's reach, they would all perish. Then, an idea struck her. "Open a channel to the other pods," she commanded. "Relay my orders. We're going to draw its fire, then split up. With any luck, we can confuse its targeting and buy the others some time to escape." There were a few tense moments of static. Then the comm crackled to life. "Aye, aye, Captain. Transmitting your orders now." Sarah turned to the pilot, her gaze steely. "Take us in close, right on the edge of its firing arc. Let's see if we can't outmaneuver that thing." The pod surged forward, weaving and bobbing as the alien defense system tracked its movements. Sarah held her breath, willing the plan to work. Suddenly, the planet's surface erupted in a blinding display of light and energy, but the pod managed to evade the brunt of the attack. Alarms blared as the shield strained under the onslaught, but they held. "Now," Sarah shouted, "all pods, break formation and scatter." The other escape vessels veered off in different directions, the alien system's attention divided as it struggled to lock onto multiple targets. For a tense moment, it appeared to falter, its firing rate growing erratic. "Keep us moving, pilot," Sarah barked. "Don't let it get a lock." The pod juked and weaved, its thrusters straining as it pushed the limits of its maneuverability. Sarah gripped the armrests, her knuckles white, as the alien beams whizzed perilously close. Then, just as suddenly as the attack had begun, the alien system seemed to power down, its deadly energy beams fading into the void. We did it," one of the crew members ventured, his voice tinged with disbelief. Sarah let out a long, ragged breath. "For now. But I doubt that's the last we've seen of that thing." She turned to the comm officer. "Contact the other pods, get a status report. We need to regroup and figure out our next move." As the crew sprang into action, Sarah stared out the viewports, her gaze fixed on the distant, ominous planet. Whatever ancient alien civilization had left that defense system behind, they had vastly underestimated the tenacity and determination of the human race. But she knew that the next time they encountered it, they would need to be better prepared. The loss of the Victory had been a humbling, devastating blow, one that would spur them to greater heights of innovation and technological advancement. Humanity would not be denied. They would return, stronger and more resolute than ever before, to reclaim what was rightfully theirs. The battered escape pods drifted aimlessly through the void, their occupants nursing both physical and emotional wounds. Sarah stood in the center of the cramped compartment, her gaze sweeping over the haggard faces of her crew. "Report," she said, her voice tight but steady. The comm officer cleared his throat. "We've made contact with the other pods. Out of the 8 that launched, only 4 survived the alien attack. The others were destroyed." Sarah grimaced, her heart sinking. Over half her crew, gone in an instant. She knew the names, the faces of every single one of them. It was a staggering loss, one that threatened to break her resolve. But she couldn't afford to dwell on it. Not now. "Casualties?" she asked, steeling her voice. "Several injured, mostly from the shockwaves and debris impacts. 2 dead." The officer paused, his expression somber, including Commander Jackson. Sarah felt a pang of grief, but she forced it down, focusing instead on the task at hand. "Where are the other pods?" "Scattered, but converging on our location. ETA, 10 minutes. She nodded, then turned to the pilot. "Status of our systems. Shields at 20% and slowly recharging. Thrusters and life support are holding, but we got several critical systems down. Navigation, communications, long-range sensors. We're basically flying blind out here." Sarah's jaw tightened. "We need to get to the nearest UEC outpost and report what happened. Can we make the jump to FTL?" The pilot shook his head. "Negative, Captain. The jump drive took a direct hit. It's not going to be operational anytime soon." Sarah cursed under her breath. Without the jump drive, it would take them weeks, even months, to reach the nearest UEC base at sublight speeds, and in the meantime, they were sitting ducks, vulnerable to another attack from that accursed alien defense system. "Helm, plot a course for the nearest habitable planet," she ordered. "We'll need to make planetfall and effect repairs before we can even think about jumping to FTL." "AI, Captain." The pilot quickly input the new coordinates, and the pod's thrusters began to propel them toward their destination. As the escape pods rendezvoused and formed a ragged convoy, Sarah turned her gaze to the viewport, watching as the distant planet that had claimed the victory grew smaller in the distance. Her jaw was set, her eyes narrowed, a mix of grief, rage, and determination swirling within her. "We'll be back," she murmured, her voice barely audible over the hum of the thrusters. "I promise you that, Victory. We'll be back, and we'll make them pay for what they've done." The journey to the nearest habitable planet was long and arduous, the battered escape pods limping along at a fraction of their normal speed. Sarah spent the time organizing her crew, assigning tasks and responsibilities, and planning their next moves. They would need to scavenge parts and resources from the planet's surface to effect the necessary repairs. And once their systems were back online, they would need to find a way to get a message to the UEC. A message that would galvanize the entire human empire to action. The loss of the Victory had been a devastating blow, but Sarah refused to let it be the end of the story. Humanity had been tested and found wanting. But they would learn from this, grow stronger, and one day return to that cursed star system to reclaim what was rightfully theirs. As the planet loomed larger in the viewports, Sarah steeled her resolve. This was not the end. It was just the beginning. "All hands, prepare for landing," she announced, her voice ringing with a newfound determination. "We've got work to do." The escape pods touched down on the surface of the alien planet with a series of jolting impacts, kicking up clouds of dust and debris. Sarah and her crew spilled out of the battered vessels, their eyes scanning the unfamiliar landscape with a mix of caution and determination. The planet's atmosphere was breathable, if a bit thinner than Earth's, and the sky overhead was a deep, rich shade of amber. Towering mountains, their peaks capped with gleaming glaciers, rose in the distance, while nearby, a vast expanse of rolling rust-colored plains stretched out as far as the eye could see. "Fan out and secure the perimeter," Sarah ordered, her voice cutting through the stunned silence that had fallen over the group. "I want periodic status reports, and keep an eye out for any signs of the alien defense network." The crew sprang into action, their faces set with grim determination as they fanned out across the alien landscape. Sarah watched them go, then turned her attention to the task at hand, assessing the damage to their escape pods and planning their next move. It was a daunting prospect. With the Victory's destruction, they had lost their primary means of transportation, communication, and defense. The escape pods were little more than fragile lifeboats, barely capable of sustained flight, let alone the rigors of interstellar travel. And yet, despite the overwhelming odds, Sarah refused to give in to despair. Humanity had been dealt a devastating blow, but she would be damned if she let it break them. "Captain." Sarah turned to see one of her crew members, a young engineer named Alec, approaching with a somber expression. "What is it, Alec?" she asked, bracing herself for more bad news. We've done a preliminary survey of the pods," Alec said, his voice faltering. "The damage is extensive. Several are barely spaceworthy, and the jump drive on the lead pod is completely fried. We're not going anywhere anytime soon." Sarah felt a flicker of frustration, but she quickly tamped it down. "Understood. What's our best course of action?" Alec hesitated, then squared his shoulders. "We'll need to scavenge parts and materials from the pods to effect repairs. With any luck, we can get at least one of them back into working order within the next few days." Sarah nodded, her mind already racing. "Do it. Coordinate with the other teams and get started immediately. We need to be ready to lift off as soon as possible." "Aye, Captain." Alec turned to leave, but paused, a glimmer of uncertainty in his eyes. What do you think happened back there? How could the Victory be destroyed so easily?" Sarah's expression darkened. "I don't know," she admitted, "but I intend to find out. That alien defense network was unlike anything we've ever encountered. It was sophisticated, powerful, and ruthless, and it's clear that we were woefully unprepared to deal with it." She clenched her fist, feeling the familiar stirrings of anger and determination. "But we're going to change that. We're going to study that system, understand its weaknesses, and then we're going to come back here and wipe it off the face of this planet." Alec's eyes widened, and a glimmer of hope flickered across his face. "You really think we can do it? Defeat an enemy that destroyed the Victory?" Sarah's lips curved into a grim smile. "I don't think it, Alec. I know it. Humanity has faced seemingly insurmountable challenges before, and we've always emerged stronger for it. This will be no different." She turned her gaze back to the towering mountains, her expression hardening. "We may have lost the Victory, but we haven't lost our fight. And as long as I'm standing, we will never surrender." Alec nodded, a newfound resolve in his eyes. "I'll get the team started right away, Captain. We won't let the Victory sacrifice be in vain." As Alec hurried off to organize the repair efforts, Sarah took a deep, steadying breath. The road ahead would be long and arduous, filled with challenges and setbacks, but she refused to be daunted. Humanity had been tested, and they had been found wanting. But this was not the end. It was only the beginning. The makeshift repair camp on the alien planet was a hive of activity, with the surviving crew working around the clock to salvage what they could from the damaged escape pods. Sarah pored over the schematics and sensor data, her brow furrowed in concentration as she tried to piece together the puzzle of the alien defense system. "What have we got, Alec?" she asked, looking up as the young engineer approached. Alec wiped the sweat from his brow, his expression grim. "Not good, I'm afraid. The damage is worse than we thought. We managed to get one of the pods back into working order, but the jump drive is still non-functional. We're stuck here until we can scavenge enough parts to repair it." Sarah nodded, her lips tightening into a thin line. "And the alien defense network. That's the real problem." Alec pulled up a series of holographic displays, each one showing various aspects of the sensor data they had collected. "Based on our analysis, the system is an ancient automated network of advanced weapons platforms. The energy beams it used to destroy the Victory are some kind of directed energy weapon, capable of unleashing devastating amounts of power. He paused, his expression growing more troubled. And the worst part is, it seems to be self-repairing. Every time we try to get a closer look, the system detects our approach and launches another attack. We're lucky we managed to evade it the first time. Sarah's eyes narrowed as she studied the displays, her mind racing. So it's not just a defensive system then. It's an active, autonomous threat that will continue to target us until we find a way to neutralize it. Exactly. Alec nodded grimly. And based on our preliminary scans, we don't have the firepower to take it down, not in our current condition. We'd need a full fleet or some kind of specialized countermeasure. Sarah's jaw tightened, and she felt a familiar surge of determination. Then that's what we'll have to find. We can't just sit here and wait for it to come back and finish us off. She turned to the rest of the crew, who had gathered around to hear the update. Listen up, everyone. I know the loss of the Victory has been a hard blow, and we're far from home with limited resources, but we can't afford to lose hope. Humanity's future may very well depend on what we do here. The crew straightened, their expressions hardening with resolve. Sarah knew she had their undivided attention. That alien defense system may have bested us once, but I'll be damned if I let it do it again. We're going to study that thing, understand its weaknesses, and then we're going to find a way to take it down. And once we've done that, we're going to send a message to the UEC, a message that will rally the entire human empire to our cause. She paused, letting her words sink in. We may be stranded here for now, but we're not alone. The UEC will come for us, I'm sure of it. And when they do, we'll be ready. We'll show them that the loss of the Victory was not in vain, and that humanity will not be denied. A cheer went up from the crew, and Sarah felt a surge of pride. These were not just her subordinates. They were her comrades, her fellow soldiers in the fight for humanity's survival. And she knew, without a doubt, that they would all do whatever it took to ensure that their mission was a success. All right, people, let's get to work, she said, her voice ringing with authority. The sooner we get that jump drive repaired, the sooner we can get back out there and show that alien defense system exactly what we're made of. As the crew scattered to their various tasks, Sarah turned her gaze back to the holographic displays, her expression set with grim determination. Humanity had been tested and found wanting. But this was not the end. This was only the beginning. The makeshift repair camp on the alien planet bustled with activity as the surviving crew of the Victory worked tirelessly to restore their battered escape pods. Sarah paced the perimeter, her keen eyes sweeping over the progress being made, a frown creasing her brow. "How's it looking, Alec?" she asked, approaching the young engineer as he emerged from one of the pods. Alec wiped the sweat from his brow, his expression grim. "Not great, I'm afraid. We've managed to get the primary systems online, but the jump drive is still dead. Without it, we're not going anywhere." Sarah nodded, her lips tightening into a thin line. "And what about the alien defense network? Any updates on that?" "Unfortunately, yes." Alec gestured towards the distant horizon, where the massive gas giant that had been the site of the Victory's destruction loomed ominously. "That thing is still active, and it's showing no signs of slowing down. Every time we try to get close enough to study it, it launches another attack." He shook his head, frustration evident in his tone. "We're completely outmatched, Sarah. That system is unlike anything we've ever encountered. Its targeting algorithms, its power output, its self-repair capabilities. It's all beyond anything in our current arsenal." Sarah's jaw tightened, her eyes narrowing. "Then we'll have to find a way to even the playing field. We can't just sit back and let that thing pick us off one by one." Alec hesitated, his expression uncertain. "I know you don't want to hear this, but maybe we should consider calling for help. If we can get a message to the UEC, they might be able to send a fleet tow." "No," Sarah cut him off, her voice sharp. "We're not running, Alec. We're not abandoning this world to that alien menace. Humanity has already lost too much here." She turned her gaze back to the distant planet, her expression hardening. "We're going to find a way to take that thing down, even if it means scavenging every last piece of tech from these pods. I won't let the victory sacrifice be in vain." Alec opened his mouth, then closed it, nodding reluctantly. "Understood, Captain. We'll keep working on the repairs, but I don't know how long we can hold out against that defense system." "We'll find a way," Sarah said, her voice tinged with a quiet determination. "We have to." As Alec headed back to the repair efforts, Sarah stared up at the alien sky, her mind racing. The loss of the victory had been a devastating blow, both to her personally and to the human empire as a whole. But she refused to let it break her or her crew. They had been tested and found wanting. But that only made her more resolute in her determination to succeed. Humanity had faced seemingly insurmountable challenges before, and they had always emerged stronger for it. This would be no different. Turning on her heel, Sarah strode towards the central command area, her mind already formulating a plan. If they couldn't call for reinforcements, then they would have to find another way to even the odds. And if that meant scavenging every last piece of technology from these pods, then so be it. "All right, people, listen up," she called out, her voice cutting through the buzz of activity. "We're going to need to get creative if we want to take down that alien defense system. I want all hands on deck. I don't care if it's an engine part, a communications module, or a piece of scrap metal. If it can be repurposed, I want to know about it." The crew turned to face her, their expressions a mix of uncertainty and determination. Sarah knew they were tired, battered, and scared. But she also knew that they were more than capable of rising to the challenge. "We may be stranded, but we're not alone. The UEC will come for us, I'm sure of it. And when they do, we'll be ready. We'll show them that the loss of the victory was not in vain, and that humanity will not be denied." A cheer went up from the crew, and Sarah felt a surge of pride. These were not just her subordinates. They were her comrades, her fellow soldiers in the fight for humanity's survival. And she knew, without a doubt, that they would all do whatever it took to ensure that their mission was a success. As the crew scattered to their various tasks, Sarah turned her gaze back to the distant planet, her expression set with grim determination. Humanity had been tested and found wanting. But this was not the end. This was only the beginning. The makeshift repair camp hummed with activity as the surviving crew of the Victory worked tirelessly to restore their battered escape pods. Sarah stood at the center of the operation, her keen eyes scanning the progress with a mixture of pride and determination. "Status report," she demanded, turning to Alec, who had emerged from one of the pods, his face streaked with grime and sweat. "We're making progress, Captain," Alec reported, wiping his brow. "The primary systems are all online, and we've managed to jury-rig a workaround for the jump drive. It's not pretty, but it should get us off this rock and back into space." Sarah nodded, her expression tightening. "And the alien defense system?" Alec's face darkened. "Still active and just as formidable as before. We've been monitoring it closely, and it seems to be on high alert, no doubt in response to our attempted repairs. It's not going to let us leave without a fight." Sarah's jaw tightened, her mind racing. They had come so far, overcome so many obstacles, and she wasn't about to let that alien menace stop them now. "Then we'll have to find a way to neutralize it before we make our move." Alec's eyes widened, a glimmer of uncertainty in his gaze. "Captain, you can't be serious. That thing nearly destroyed the Victory with a single shot. How can we possibly hope to take it down with a handful of battered escape pods?" Sarah's expression hardened. "We don't have a choice, Alec. If we try to leave without disabling that defense system, it'll pick us off one by one. We need to find a way to level the playing field, and we need to do it fast." She turned to address the gathered crew, her voice ringing with authority. "Listen up, everyone. We've got one shot at this, and we can't afford to fail. I'm putting together a team of our best pilots and combat specialists, and we're going to infiltrate that alien system and take it down from the inside." A murmur of uncertainty rippled through the crowd, but Sarah raised her hand, silencing them. "I know it's a long shot, but we don't have any other options. That defense system is the only thing standing between us and freedom, and I'll be damned if I'm going to let it win." She scanned the faces of her crew, her gaze unwavering. "Who's with me?" To her relief, one by one, the crew members stepped forward, their expressions hardening with determination. Sarah felt a surge of pride. These were not just her subordinates, but her comrades, her fellow soldiers in the fight for humanity's survival. "Alec, I want you to coordinate the repairs and prep the escape pods for launch," she said, turning to the young engineer. "The rest of you with me. We're going to take the fight to that alien menace and show it exactly what the human race is made of." As the crew scattered to their various tasks, Sarah felt a familiar sense of purpose settling over her. This was it, their one chance to turn the tide, to reclaim what had been stolen from them, and she would be damned if she let it slip through their fingers. Striding towards the makeshift hangar where the reconnaissance shuttle was being prepared, Sarah took a deep, steadying breath. The odds were stacked against them, but she knew that her crew was more than up to the challenge. They had faced insurmountable odds before, and they had always emerged victorious. This time would be no different. As the shuttle lifted off, Sarah cast one last glance at the repair camp, her expression hardening with resolve. They were coming for you, victory, she thought, her heart aching with the weight of her loss. And this time, nothing would stand in their way. The reconnaissance shuttle streaked through the alien sky, its thrusters straining as it surged towards the massive gas giant that housed the formidable defense system. Sarah gripped the armrests of her seat, her knuckles white, as she watched the ominous planet loom larger in the viewports. "Status report," she barked, her eyes fixed on the looming threat. "Shields at 80% and holding." The pilot responded, his voice tense. "We're on the edge of the defense system's detection range, but it hasn't spotted us yet." Sarah nodded, her jaw tightening. "Good. Keep us at maximum stealth and prepare for the insertion. I want the team ready to move the moment we get in range." The small team of hand-picked specialists, the best pilots, technicians, and combat experts from the surviving crew, began to check their gear, their faces set with grim determination. Sarah moved amongst them, offering a brief word of encouragement to each, her expression stoic, but her eyes betraying the depth of her resolve. "Remember, our mission is simple," she said, her voice cutting through the hushed murmurs. "We neutralize that defense system, no matter the cost. Once we've done that, the rest of the crew will be able to escape this system and get the intel back to the UEC." The team members nodded, their expressions hardening. Sarah knew that they were all too aware of the risks, but they also understood the stakes. Humanity's future hung in the balance, and they were the only ones who could tip the scales. As the shuttle neared the edge of the defense system's detection range, Sarah tensed, her eyes scanning the distant planet for any signs of activity. "Here we go," the pilot murmured, his fingers dancing across the controls. "Commencing insertion in 3, 2, 1. The shuttle dove towards the planet's surface, its thrusters throttling up to their maximum output. Sarah braced herself, her heart pounding in her chest, as they breached the outer perimeter of the alien defenses. Alarms blared to life as the defense system detected their approach, and Sarah felt a surge of adrenaline as she watched the planet's surface erupt in a blinding display of energy. The shuttle shuddered under the onslaught, its shields straining to keep the deadly beams at bay. "Hang on," the pilot shouted, his hands flying across the controls as he fought to maintain their course. The insertion team hurtled towards their target, their expressions set with grim determination. Sarah gripped the edge of her seat, her teeth gritted, as she watched the alien defense system's barrage intensify. "We're taking heavy damage," the pilot reported, his voice strained. "I don't know how much longer we can hold out." Sarah's eyes narrowed as she spotted a break in the aliens' defenses, a weakness, a gap in the network that they could exploit. "There," she shouted, pointing towards the opening. "That's our chance. Take us in, full speed." The shuttle surged forward, its thrusters straining as it dove towards the vulnerable point. The alien defense system reacted quickly, its energy beams lashing out with even greater intensity, but the shuttle weaved and dodged, its agility and maneuverability proving to be the key to its survival. As they neared the gap, Sarah felt a surge of triumph. "Now," she cried, and the insertion team sprang into action, launching themselves from the shuttle and hurtling towards the alien structure at the heart of the defense network. Sarah watched with bated breath as the team disappeared into the complex, her heart pounding in her chest. The shuttle continued to dodge and weave, its shields flickering under the relentless assault, but she knew that their fate now rested in the hands of the brave souls who had infiltrated the alien system. Minutes ticked by, each one feeling like an eternity, until finally, the alien defenses began to falter. The energy beams grew erratic, their intensity waning, and Sarah felt a surge of hope. They did it. The pilot shouted, his voice tinged with disbelief. "The defense system is going down." Sarah couldn't help but crack a grin, her eyes shining with a mixture of pride and relief. Humanity had been tested and found wanting, but they had risen to the challenge, proving that they were not to be denied. As the shuttle streaked back towards the makeshift repair camp, Sarah turned her gaze to the distant planet, now wreathed in a haze of smoke and debris. The victory would be avenged, and the human empire would emerge stronger than ever before. This was not the end. This was only the beginning.